Hello, my friends. Well, it's Tuesday, but I'm going to do a recent reads today because I found out that starting tomorrow, Wednesday, there is going to be infrastructure work going on our street and back alley. I expect there's going to be some noise, so Friday might be difficult to do a Friday reads. But also, I've already read or finished 7 books since my last Friday read, so there's plenty to tell you about. 4 out of those 7 are for Skoden, and if you are new to my channel, you might not know that Skoden is a readathon going on. and this is Frida. Skoden is a readathon going on through the whole month of December. It is to read Indigenous authors. I will put information down below to Kim of Native Lady Book Warrior and her announcement. Because it's only the 22nd today, you've still got another week if you want to participate. I hope that many of you are participating, actually. So one of the things that I decided to do in my description notes, I decided to add after the author's name their Indigenous community, if they have one. And also I've decided to start adding publisher. So let me know if that makes a difference for you, either of those things. I'm always curious. And coming up in this video, there will be puppets. Stay tuned. But the first book I'm going to tell you about is The Summer of Bitter and Sweet by Jen Ferguson. This is a YA novel that won the Governor General Award. I will link the GG information down below in the description box if you want to know more. It is by a Métis author. Actually, Jen Ferguson is part Métis and part white, and so is her central character, Liu. Now, the story takes place in contemporary times in the city of Lloydminster, which is a city that straddles the provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan. So, kind of like Liu, whose mother is Métis, and whose father is a white man who raped her mother and went to jail for it. So what's happening now is this man is out of jail and wants to have a father-type relationship with Liu. Liu is working at a ice cream shack. It's the family business. She and her mother have moved around a lot, but now they are living with her mother's brothers, so her uncles, on a dairy farm. And there is a whole lot going on in this novel. If you're the kind of person who says, I think the author just tried to do too much in this novel, maybe this book isn't for you. I think that Ferguson actually did a really good job with complex issues of self-identity, racism, violence against women and girls, and sexuality. The author herself is, I think, demisexual, and Liu is also either ace or demisexual, and her best friend is a lesbian, and another friend is bisexual. So we got lots of queer representation in here. We have representation of the giant things that small towns put up in the prairies to, I don't know, make their mark. I found it extremely enjoyable, 4.5 stars. The audiobook is read by Julie Lumsden, who is Métis, and even the art on the cover is by a Métis artist, Kim Stewart. It's published by Heartdrum, which is an imprint that only does Indigenous-focused work for kids and teens. Next up is another audiobook with a central character of mixed ethnicity. Our Missing Hearts by Celeste Ng. Celeste Ng is Chinese American. I think this is her third novel. It's a dystopia and quite chilling because it's set in the USA. That's just slightly askew, but so much of the stuff in it could be real. The authoritarianism, the forced removal of children, the anti-Asian violence and discrimination. It is certainly drawing on true events, not only in the United States with the separation of the families of enslaved people and history of removing Indigenous children to residential schools in the US, Canada, and Australia. The separation of migrant families at the southern US border that continues to happen. There are some quite violent scenes in there. There was one scene where an Asian woman was pushed in front of a train. And in a different book that I read this past week, true story, Elaine Castillo talks about her Filipina aunt being pushed by a stranger in front of a train. Her aunt survived because she was able to flatten herself between the rails and the train passed on top of her. So that's part of why I found this story so chilling, because it's so believable how discrimination gets rationalized under the guise of safety and protection. The other thing that's going on in this story, it's mainly about a 12-year-old boy whose mother is Chinese American and whose father is white. So Bird is his name. And his mother leaves the family in order to prevent Bird from being taken away from them because Asian parents are seen as being unsuitable parents. She's a poet, and a line from one of her books of poetry, Our Missing Hearts, gets used by the resistance to this regime, and there's a lot of guerrilla activism, and I felt there was a real caring heart at the core of this story, and that's what lifted it for me to 4.5 stars above simply an intriguing idea. Book number 3 is a children's chapter book by Buffy Sainte-Marie with illustrations by the author and also by Michelle Alynn Clement. It's suitable for about grades 1 to 3 or to be read aloud to a younger audience. I found it quite fun. It's called Tâpwê and the Magic Hat. So this little boy, Tâpwê, his kokum, his grandmother, takes him to stay with some relatives for the summer, and she also gives him a magic hat. So you can see it on the cover. It looks like a bunch of feathers, and on the top there are 3 little birds and 3 little grass snakes who are alive and are like little friends for him. And so quite charming. Tâpwê also meets the trickster in the form of a rabbit. And he learns a lot of different lessons. So there's full-page illustrations that go with it. A note at the end tells parents and teachers that this contemporary fiction should not be presented as an authentic legend. although there are some stories within it that Tâpwê gets told that are based on legends. Good to make that distinction, I think. Buffy Sainte-Marie is Cree, and there is a glossary at the back because there are some Cree words in the book. Nahiawewan is the language, the Cree language. And Tâpwê's name actually means yes indeed. And at one point he says that it was kind of fun having a name that could do two jobs. I read that one in ebook format, so I don't have a copy here to show you. And it's the same with this next book, which is a collection of poetry by Dallas Hunt called Creeland. Dallas Hunt, who is Cree from northern Alberta, the province where I live in Canada, has previously published a children's picture book, Awâcis and the world-famous Bannock. That one is illustrated by Amanda Stone. Now, Creeland is poetry for adults. He also uses a sprinkling of Cree vocabulary throughout, and there is a glossary at the end. There is a certain undercurrent of anger in his poems, and that made me think of something that Anne Carson said. I'm going to be talking about an Anne Carson book later in this video, but she was talking about Greek tragedy actually when she said, "Why does tragedy exist? Because you are full of rage. Why are you full of rage? Because you are full of grief." And I think that applies not only to Dallas Hunt's poetry, but a lot of other poetry as well. Tawahum Bige's collection, Cut to Fortress. That's another one that has even more rage raging through it. I'm going to link to Dallas Hunt reading his own work online, and he introduces himself in the Nahiawewan also. And I'm also going to read just one poem from this collection to you now. It's called Small. I used to not like to be made to feel small, but now I like it down here with the mulch, ladybugs, loam, the sticks. Aphids in arms, hand in hand with the mites and gnats, mycologist in miniature, fungi my friends. I'm happy now in my studies to gaze upward, to scheme, plan tactics, nascent strategies, to set the stage, if you will, for elementary outbreaks, mushrooms and me, blueprints in tow, toxic cocktails of Eleukia at the ready. Yes, I don't mind feeling small, 'cause you can see and plot a lot from down here. And next up, another book of Indigenous poetry. This is by N Scott Momaday, and it's called In the Bear's House. I think it was published in 1999. It's full of Momaday's artwork. And the first half of the book is a collection of dialogues between Urset, who is the original bear. It's who Momaday says is a template of the wilderness. And so Urset is having these philosophical discussions with the Creator, Yahweh, or God. And the second half is a collection of poems, all inspired by bears. So the dialogues were my favorite part. There's one on berries, there's prayers, dreams, story, evolution, thought, and time. And I have some puppets. Here's Ursit. And here's Yahweh. And this is from the dialogue Berries. Here, I brought something for us to eat. Ah, huckleberries. Thank you, Ursit, most kind. I hope you like berries. We can be messy with them if you like, as I do. We can have purple lips and tongues. We can let the juice drip into our beards. Then everyone will know that we have eaten red, purple, blue, ripe, delicious, juice-squirting berries. Ha! They will think we have been discussing serious things. Affairs of state, perhaps. Strategies of war. Two old chiefs in wise council, muttering, making faces. Our bibs will be stained as if with blood. But, truly, Ursit, we shall have done nothing more than eat berries. We shall eat them with enthusiasm, with reckless abandon, with irresistible intent, in fury and frenzy, in the manner of cubs, with the manners of cubs. And it goes on. And in the section on prayer, I have been thinking that I would like to pray, but I don't know how. Why, that's nonsense. Of course you know how to pray. You knew from the day you were born. I saw to that. It is a thing I give to all my creatures. But I don't know what prayer is. How can I know how to pray? Tell me, please, what is prayer? It is talking to God, Ursit, simply that. And it is the silence from which your words proceed. Am I praying now, great mystery? Even as we speak. Do you pray, may I ask? Devoutly, unceasingly. It is what I do. It is what I am. Would you be so kind as to make a prayer for me just now? For me? I pray that you are kept safe throughout this day, that you live as holy as you can, that you see things that you have not seen before, and that more of them are beautiful than not, more of them delightful than not. I pray that you hold easily in your hands the balance of the earth and sky, that you laugh and cry, know freedom and restraint, some joy and some sorrow, pleasure and pain, much of life and a little of death. I pray that you are grateful for the gift of your being, and I pray that you celebrate your life in the proper way, with grace and humility, wonder and contentment, in the strong, deep current of your spirit's voice. I pray that you are happily in love in the dawn, and that you are more deeply in love in the dusk. Amen. So that gives you a taste of In the Bear's House by Scott Momaday. And I have more puppets for you, because this next book, which you can't see very well, it's mostly just a black cover. It is H of H by Anne Carson, and it's a strange genre mix of poetry and translation of an ancient Greek play, Herakles by Euripides, together with Anne Carson's art. And the text is pasted in. Sometimes the pages are torn, so they're shorter, and it all has a particular effect. It helps to know the premise of the original play. It begins when he has returned from the 12 tasks that he had to do, which he did in 10 years, starting with killing the Nemean lion. So you see him here wearing it as a cloak, sort of. If he had arms, he would be holding a great big club, and that's how you know it's Herakles. So, as I was saying, at the beginning of the play, he returns, and the setting is an Airstream trailer. So there's all of this blending of different timelines into the story. He's really happy. His wife and kids see them again. And then the goddess Hera, she's always hated Herakles. That's a whole other story. Anyway, she sends down madness, and he ends up murdering his wife and kids. And then he wants to kill himself when he realizes what he has done. And in comes Theseus. This is Herakles' war buddy. Theseus at one point was helping somebody get Persephone out of Hades, and Theseus was stuck there, and Herakles got him out. Again, a whole big other story. But he comes to the rescue. So imagine Herakles, he's ready to commit suicide. He's got his head in his hands. I've got a stick puppet here, so no hands. But just imagine, head in the hands, he's despondent, okay? Now, in the book, we see the instructions as voiceover. On other pages, it'll be enter, stage left, or whatever, because in many ways it's written as a play. One more thing. In this book, H of H, that's what Carson calls Herakles. So throughout the book, he's H of H, okay? Herakles, picture him on stage, head in hands, all right? The thing you have to understand is not half these people realize they're in a myth. You know what this reminds me of? This commodity fetish, this H of H, reminds me of the way Melville talks about the sperm whale. The skeleton articulated throughout so that, like a great chest of drawers, you can open and shut him in all his bony cavities, spread out his ribs like a gigantic fan, and swing all day upon his lower jaw. I'm just saying, let's be careful. This whale isn't dead, but he'd like to be, is why I'm here. He saved me once. I owe him. He hides his head. They always hide their head when the fight goes out of them. When they can't reach their own beautiful ideas anymore, and the birds keep dying on the windshield, and the gods have the phone off the hook. Yet I admit, H of H was a special case, maybe no rougher than anyone else as to background, and he was ever a crazy pony in early days, off on a gallop at every wind, fixated on a white pickup truck for one whole summer. Whoa, that was stupid. But then he got involved in an action he calls the Labors. 10 years there. 10 years, a long time. Who knows what really went on? When the war is over, turn out the lights, we used to say, or was it a song? But you don't walk out of 10 years of labor into normal living. You eat like a bulldozer, get drunk too easy, get angry too fast, get yourself lost, go ice blue all night. God, night is bad. Main thing is you hate fear. Fear is a sin. I'm just saying, let's not break connection with him. This river has no third side. So I go up close. I say, H of H, look at me. Unwrap your head. Cover me, night. Hide the miscreant. You don't need night. You saw what I did. Saw what you did. I am a contamination. Can't contaminate me. Do you know a calamity greater than mine? Yours grazes the sky. I mean to die. Well, there's different ways of beating the treadmill. Go back to nothingness whence I came. That has the ring of cliché. Easy for you to say. I have a better idea. Not unrelated. I'm thinking a t-shirt, lion skin background. You wear it. You shoot yourself. I sell it. Say Sotheby's, bullet hole and all. You joke while I am stuffed with woes. No room for more. No joke. We put I hate fear on the back. Small font. Helvetica bold. I'll just skip ahead a bit. I don't judge you. I'm not saying move back towards life. I'm saying the future isn't elsewhere. We're in a locked spaceship, H of H. We have nothing but continuing. What could be more useless than you limping off stage to die in a dead language? Of course the guys upstairs would love that. Your gods crafted a soul too big for the space of life they gave you to live in. You smash anything that smells like an enemy, then your smell goes haywire and you can't stop. Don't be stupid, H of H. You are organized violence. You think any of this is unexpected upstairs? Remember Chernobyl? The physicists were told to phone their wives and say, wash your hair, take in the laundry, and drink 2 drops of iodine in a glass of water. Everyone called them heroes. Suffering like that, you need old words. Next day, all the books on radiation vanished from the Chernobyl library. I'm just saying, you call them gods. They call you walking ash. H of H is the most enjoyable book that I've read out of the bunch. 5 stars, even though I have to say that when I was about a quarter of the way into it, I was thinking about giving up. I was just like, I'm not getting this, not getting it. I'm so glad that I persisted because it ended up being outstanding. Yeah. So the last book is Elaine Castillo's How to Read Now, a collection of essays. Castillo is a queer Filipina American, and she also wrote the novel America Is Not the Heart, which I highly recommend. The reason I am talking about this book last is because I think that this is the one that will stay with me the longest out of all the books that I am talking about in this video. 5 stars. The title, it's both a question and an admonition. Castillo says she was a bookish kid growing up in California, and she read a lot of white authors, but she didn't read them in a white centering kind of way. She does trash Joan Didion's writing, and I have to say I felt relieved about that because I had heard so much great stuff about Joan Didion, and I have never been able to connect. I've tried a few times. I just don't care for her writing, and maybe for different reasons than Castillo, but the California author that Castillo does recommend is Tommy Pico and his book Nature Poem, which I adore, so go for that. Castillo also trashes the notion that reading builds empathy. Well, she doesn't exactly trash the notion, but she wants to show us its limitations. She says incomplete because really empathy is work that we need to do every day in our daily lives, and it's not something that you just get from reading something. She's got lots more to say about that. She talks about looking at Jane Austen's work within the context of colonialism, and she talks about reading politically. She talks about being the unexpected reader. She says, readers do half the work of a book's life. That means we must do half the heavy lifting of its project. She has a rant about positive representation in art because she says you can feel the flat affect when that is the purpose of a piece of writing or art. She agrees that representation matters, kind of grudgingly, but she says representation matters type art is interested in people in the same way that Joan Didion is interested in people, which is to say, not at all. She talks about folklore and how European folklore was viewed by its compilers and its readers as a form of cultural expression, as art. But folklore that comes to us through colonial transmission, on the other hand, is compiled for an entirely different purpose. It is for the education and entertainment of the people who subjugated another people. It's collected about a certain people, but it's not for those people. Lots to think about in here. She talks about whether or not you can separate the art from the artist. J.K. Rowling being one of the authors she gives the example of, but also Pablo Neruda. I did not know that he freely admitted to raping a Sri Lankan chambermaid when he was posted as a diplomat there. I'm the kind of reader that when I know that, it's going to change my desire to read Neruda's work. Another thing Castillo says is, the story I'm telling is not just something for you to feel sympathy for, rage against, be educated by. It's a story about you too. Yeah, so so much for me to think about, and I know I'm going to want to read these essays again. It took me 3 weeks to get through the book, and I feel like I've only just scratched the surface of the ideas. She recommended this book by Toni Morrison that I'm going to pick up next, Playing in the Dark, Whiteness and the Literary Imagination. It's a work of literary criticism, and it's only about 90 pages long. Let me know if you've read it and what you think of it. Actually, let me know if you've read any of these other books. I'm always eager to hear what you think. I am going to finish off with a short video of me knitting a scarf for my sister with yarn that was given to me by another sister. So that's one of the other things I'm doing besides reading these days. Actually, I'm usually listening to an audiobook while I knit. I think I probably will do a Friday Reads. I'll figure out something to get around noise, if noise is even an issue. I don't even know, because I'm bound to have more books to talk about by then. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.